Hi everyone. So I bought a new T-shirt. It says something like, I don't know if you can see it. Probably you can. I may be wrong, but I doubt it. This is basically the topic of the talk. That's it. That's finished. Thank you. Now, this is how a lot of us feel at times. Probably like you may feel in the same way. And the topic of the talk is why this is not very optimal most of the time, and what we can do about it. I'm Simone. I'm head of engineering at Onto, that little box over there. We provide electric car subscription, so that you pay a fixed fee and you get the car everywhere. This is currently UK, moving to Germany and France soon next year. So if you're passionate about electric cars, definitely come over and have a chat about battery and new models. This talk is going to be about pretty much me and my mistakes. Normally I like to share things that go well, so instead today I'm going to share something that didn't go well. So just a bit of context. So I've been in leadership position for roughly 10 years, in corporate, consulting, small startups, scale-ups. I've been going through in between managerial and individual contributor roles for most of my time. So have you ever seen people that have this beautiful sort of career path? Mine looks a bit like that. So it's kind of like, it's not straight. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to pick 3 points over my career. 3 points where I was a leader or a manager, and I'm going to tell you some stories. Let's say the learning are going to be on the last one. But I'm going to put some seeds, some clues in the other one, so that if you're the kind of person that love to listen for clues, sort of like and say, haha, I know how the movie is ending, yeah, watch out. So let me start with the first one. So we're going back quite a lot. So this is in Italy. I think it's about 15, 16 years ago. I was at the time engineering manager in the public sector. So obviously the term wasn't even created, but I was doing line management, project management, and technical leadership. Obviously, life was different, probably like the industry in Italy is very different from the north of Europe. But when I think, how do I describe my managerial skills? I normally think about Office Space. I don't know if you watched the movie. There was that terrible sort of like manager with suspenders, glasses, like evil manager micromanaging everyone. I really felt a bit like that. It was interesting because I felt it's all about delivery. It's all about achieving our goals. Yeah, there are people involved, but not necessarily are important. They're not. Partially was the context. So I wasn't working in a great company. I didn't have a lot of great role models. Not a lot of people I could look at and feel like, okay, this is the type of manager, the type of leader I want to be. So I was aware of that was a massive limitation, that probably I should have been a manager at that time, and it would be a mistake. So I decided to move on. Now, let me do a bit of a fast forward. So if we fast forward then to my second role that I'm describing today, not in general, I was tech leader in a consulting team, in a consulting company. With probably that happened 3 or 4 years after the previous role. So there was a massive change. The culture of the company was incredibly better. They understood that you hire great engineers, you hire great people, you really want them to grow. So there was a great learning, personal development sort of like culture. What I learned not only that you want to grow your people, and actually that growing people sort of help your organization, but I also learned the power of coaching. The company was doing a lot of agile transformation. So, the concept of you have a coach that grow without really being too involved was very, very part of our culture. And I started to think, I really want to be a coach. This is obviously a different type of coach. The idea that you can't really do push up for your employee or for your clients, but you can build an environment where actually you can help them do push-ups. I think it was quite interesting and quite fascinating for me. But this is a topic on its own, so probably is not going to be part of this, but I have a talk tomorrow if you want to know about how do you grow an environment where people can improve and thrive. What was the challenge? Because every work has a challenge. The challenge is as consultant, we are quite confident. I don't know, any consultant in the room here today? Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, right? So you are trained to be, confident. Imagine if you're not confident, you go to a client, it's kind of like, whoa, I'm not really sure. Yeah, let's get out. So we are trained to be confident, and that doesn't help with what's going to happen later, the story I'm going to tell you later. So now let's go to the tough part. So story number 3. At 8, 9 years later, I became the co-founder and CTO of a small startup. I moved from working company where we were hundreds, thousands of employees to company with 10 employees. So obviously, like everything was different. But I felt so enlightened. I got it. I was like, well, I know how to do coaching now. I'm a much better leader. I learn how to grow people. I know how to grow a team. I got everything. Obviously, is not everything is about delivery, like I used to think. It's all about coaching. It's all about growing people. I was wrong. Well, the first struggle. What is my job? So obviously, this is not like what's my daily job. I mean, that's a bit more boring. It was more like what are the principles that should drive my job. Let me tell you a story to explain what I mean. At some point, we decided that we needed to hire another engineer. And unfortunately, despite the process was relatively good, we hired not the right person. Obviously, I put my coach hat on and I say, look, let's do it. Let's help him. One-on-one, pair programming, help him with time management. I really threw at him everything I could. And obviously, the person improved. The challenge is that the gap was too wide. And at some point, I had to realize that, well, despite I was doing great as a coach, that probably wasn't what my company needed. I realized that my primary job was actually to make the team and company successful. I know that coaching is a great way to make it happen. I know that stepping back, allowing people to grow, allow teams to grow is the best way to do it. But my primary goal is to make it successful. So it's not about delivery, it's not about coaching. Primary is to make the company successful, and you need both. Now, you may think, okay, great, this is a sad story, let's move on, everything is happy. Well, guess what? Something else was happening. So I promise, I did some good in this company. I mean, it wasn't all terrible, but what's the point of this talk if I don't share the struggle? As you can imagine, I started to have some difficult conversation, some discussion, some massive disagreement. And you all know, we all, probably a lot of us are engineers in the room. So I know, you know what I'm talking about, right? Right? No, I'm kidding. It wasn't time and space. So it was deeper. It was really deeper. It was a discussion with my co-founder about how do we grow an organization and teams. It was so ingrained in my beliefs because it was all about coaching. It was all about, getting people better at what they were doing. It was all about how do you measure people's performance. Let me tell you a story to simplify. Some point, my co-founder come over and say, well, you know what? In sales, we measure people by KPI. We measure by how many contracts they close. We measure them by how many calls they make. We should do the same. Maybe we should help engineers by counting how many lines of code they write. And I was like, well, everything felt so wrong. My heart was pumping. I was like, let me explain this person why it's so wrong. So I spent, a couple of days quite straight, explaining everything that was wrong about his thoughts. As it wasn't a surprise, that obviously he didn't change his mind. That's not a surprise for most of us, I guess. What exactly happened is that I realized that obviously that wasn't going to go away. That was a problem that would stay there. So how did I deal with it? So I did a massive deep dive from one end How can I deal with difficult conversations? And I start reading a lot of books that I read it before, but I read it again. Especially if you're interested in difficult conversation, everything that Sheila Heen has wrote, basically difficult conversation and thanks for the feedback, are great resources. But in general, most of the books that are in there are very good resources. But not only that, I also start to talk with my peers, people that have more experience with me. How do I deal with this? Am I wrong? Honestly, every time I was telling them, am I wrong? Inside I was thinking, tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm right, please. I think this went on and on. I was improving the way I was conversing. I was listening more. But something was still off. Something was still off. And I think that inside us, engineer, we are most trained to want it to be right. We write a right test, and then we wanted to make it pass soon. Imagine if you're an engineer, it takes like 20 attempts to make it green. Probably not a great engineer, is it? And it's even worse if you're a consultant. As a consultant, if it doesn't get green on the first attempt, probably the compiler is broken, pretty much. So I think this need to prove them wrong is so strong. What clicked for me was that the conversation wasn't helping. And also, at some point I talk with someone and say, it's important that you clarify exactly what you want to do, because probably the company needs some way to measure people. But what really concerned me is that you didn't really find a way to understand what your co-founder is thinking about. Where are those problems coming from? Where is it coming from? And it was true. I was doing all the active listening that I mentioned before. I was doing all the steps. But inside in, I was thinking, well, I doubt it. I'm not wrong. Yeah, I'm going to listen to you, but I'm not wrong. So, to summarize, what do you need to do? When you have a relationship with someone is very important in your organization, and this comes from someone who has a very different background or experience from you, it's really valuable. It's really valuable to sort of step back and really hide this bit and really assume, be curious. There is something that as engineers we're good. We are good with curiosity. We're good with inspecting. When we look into things in production, we're not like, oh, I'll prove the server wrong. There is a bug. Kind of like you're better. I get good at investigating. Trying to investigate what is behind. Right? You may find that you're wrong, but you also may find deeper on the other side what's bringing this conversation in. So, to close and summarize, what I hope I share with you. I share some pain that I went through, so that potentially you may not have to go through it. But I learned that sometimes you kind of need to learn by doing your own mistakes. But remember your primary goal as a leader is really to make your team and company successful. There is coaching, but there is also a lot about delivery. And one trumps the other sometimes. And also, sometimes it's not really about being right or wrong. It's about having that trusted conversation to understand what is on the other side. I'm not advocating that everyone is right. There are best practices. And so now all the conversation end with, oh, I have my idea, you have your idea, let's build two different things. But what I'm saying is that if that relationship is important, make sure that you go through all the steps. Thank you very much. I have a few minutes, so if you want questions, please ask, or if not, you can catch up with me later. Thank you.